next to me instead of a million miles away. That way you can hear me. Hello everyone, how is everyone doing? I've got the YouTube chat up, I've got what am I called? Is it my dryer? There you go, bring that in closer then. So I'm actually audible, because a lot of people have been saying last few lives I've not been audible. But yes, hello, welcome to everyone on both the Tickly Talks and the YouTubes. I'm very itchy nose today, so I've obviously got a good surprise coming towards me. But yes, I'm glad to have you all here. Let me know how you're doing in the chat. And I guess we'll get right into it.
4 forward, drift into the right a little. 30 seconds. Looks like Neil is coming in 5 by there. 11, Mike, see you in the background.
If you don't believe that humans ever landed on the moon, you'd probably think that on July 16, 1969, a select group of government officials, a crew of filmmakers sworn to secrecy, and a famed Hollywood director named Stanley Kubrick all gathered on a soundstage in a military base.
See, this is my favourite part of this conspiracy. And I no hate to the creator, I'll actually shout him out, the video I'm using for this reaction, Johnny Harris. To what I acknowledge, I have skimmed through this a little bit. He isn't actually pro moon landing. He's not pro moon landing. Like, I mean, he's not pro. They faked it. So, like, no hate to him. He is just reporting on what the conspiracy is, because I couldn't actually find any videos, like, more than just TikTok shorts of people who genuinely believe this conspiracy. So I'm very glad, in a sense. I mean, it's annoying because it means less content availabilities for me, but it's good in a sense because it means that our civilization isn't that wrong, unless someone tries to drop me onto the fake earthers soon.
Deep in the Nevada desert, better known as Area 51. And here they pulled off the greatest hoax in history. You'd probably think that astronauts...
I've never heard they filmed on Area 51. That's new. I've never heard they filmed on Area 51. All I'm going to say, because there's going to be a lot of people that believe, like, do the Area 51 stuff. All I'm going to say is if there was anything in Area 51, it is long gone by now. It is long gone.
Or should I say actors, Buzz Aldrin, Neil Armstrong, and Michael Collins.
Buzz Aldrin actually punched someone because they said that the moon landing was fake.
Fled this rocket through a secret passageway just before it took off for space, totally empty. And you would have to believe that the estimated 400,000 people who were involved in this mission were in on it.
That's what I mean. I mean, look at it. Okay, right. To play devil's advocate, you could very easily convince a lot of the people in there that it's fake. Why is my microphone coming up so quiet? That it's real, sorry, and then have it be fake later on. My microphone is connected. Let me know if the volume, how the volume's coming out, if I'm quiet or whatnot. Because TikTok does seem to be. Oh no, I muted myself now. But yeah, what was I? Yeah, you could very easily convince like a bunch of these guys that what they were doing was real and was towards, you know, the effort of getting a man on the moon, and then fake it. But you're then telling me that a bunch of highly trained scientists, none of them would spot the issues or the inaccuracies or anything. I don't know. With 5 seconds in, I should probably actually listen to what the guy has to say. Hello, Ameridan. I am doing fine. I'm not happy that I'm having to look up about the moon landing. My main issue with this is I don't think you could get all these people in on it. But you could maybe convince them that it's real, but then you're saying none of the highly trained scientists who have spent their entire life waiting to get the chance to go to to be on the moon mission, none of them would clock that you're lying, which is my issue with it.
Promising to take this secret to their grave.
Food is made out of cheese. It is made out of cheese. We're teaching about this at the school at the moment. Poxy adverts. Have you seen YouTube actually, as my, I mean, I shouldn't be saying this to the content creator, but YouTube's actually, like, fries people's computers now if you have ad block on. It's a very good thing to teach about school because then it stops people thinking it was fake. I get the whole premise of why people think it was fake, because obviously it would propel America forward during the Cold War and give them a very strong edge against the Soviets. The issue with that is you're requiring the KGB, which at the time was one of the best intelligence networks in the world, to have not spotted that. Like, just going aside from the technical stuff of Stanley Kubrick directing the thing, like, yeah. We're doing Hidden Figures in English, Space, and Science. That's a really good movie. It's a very underrated movie as well. It really didn't get the appraise it deserved, and the story and history behind it isn't spoken enough. It's actually on my list of the lady whose name is now out of my brain, which is really annoying and makes me look very bad, but she's on my list of figures to cover on YouTube, alongside many mythical creatures that I'm getting asked to do more mythological stuff recently, more conspiracy stuff. Paul Spencer over on the YouTube side. Let's just move the TikTok algorithm out. Hey guys, there's actually been pictures taken from landing sites recently, lander modules and everything. It's literally impossible. It didn't happen. Exactly. Exactly. I like the idea. I actually spoke to someone who genuinely believes this is a real, and what their argument against that was that they went to the moon to put the stuff there. But they went to the moon later. Huh? So one of the later Apollo missions put the stuff on the... I love conspiracy theorists, man. Thank you for sharing the live over on TikTok side, Ameridan. Yeah, no, I'm really worried that if I don't get more guests in for the podcast soon, someone's going to ask me to do Flat Earth, and I might actually... I'll see if I can get a Flat Earther on, because I would love that debate. Maybe the geezer who thinks that MH17 was abducted by aliens.
22% of Americans either don't believe that we landed on the moon or harbor some doubt.
To advance the technology
Right,
of space
okay,
flight.
all right. If you harbor doubt, that's okay. As I've said many times, as I said with the Graham Hancock stuff, the Ancient Apocalypse, doubt is okay. Question everything. Always, Socrates was all about that. Diogenes was definitely all about... Well, Diogenes was about public masturbation. But, question everything. You should question everything. It's just when you're given hardcore evidence, you accept it. Can you imagine? Could you imagine if our legal system worked that way, where people could get out of stuff? Anyway, moving on.
We looked at the tapes and the countless photos. We talked to astrophysicists, meteorologists, and NASA historians to better understand the moon landing conspiracy, how it started, what hoaxers use as their evidence, and what this belief teaches us about why some conspiracies are so enduring.
Yes, there it is. The Flat Earth. The ice. I've actually seen a new Flat Earth map. There's a new Flat Earth map that just came out where it had like a load of islands beyond the ice wall, and I saw the map and I was like, this is really cool. I want a fantasy game or book series or TV show set on this, because this looks really cool for a fantasy thing. And then all the Flat Earthers in the comments go, no, this is the reality we live in. And I'm like, show me the dome or the firmament that a bunch of people have been using, misquoting the Bible. Because whenever I see a conspiracy theory that starts quoting the Bible, I have a Catholic friend, I have a Southern Baptist friend, a Calvinist, an Anglican. Like, I have a very rich web of people who read different translations of the Bible. Some of them can read it in Greek and Hebrew. And I go, explain to me this. Because there's no way I'm able to study the Bible effectively enough to understand it. And I'm like, explain to me how this conspiracy works. And they're like, yeah, no, this is a complete misquote. They've taken 2 lines out of a 40-page passage. The Adventurous Actor on the TikTok side, the women were Dorothy Vaughan, Mary Jackson, Katherine Johnson, and Christine Darden. I will be doing a video on them at some point. It's just, at the moment, my time is a lot more limited because I possibly will be starting a new job soon. So unless, in fact, if you guys, as you're watching, if you can share the videos out, and like if the 3,000 people that are subscribed on YouTube watch like 5 hours each of just have it in the background, I'll be monetized soon, and that would dramatically change how I can do content. Looking at how much I would be making already. Especially because I could get super chats, and once you're monetized, YouTube pushes you more. Over on YouTube side, I love these conspiracy ones because I get the comments. It's a lot more interactive. I do like sort of prefer it than the guests, but also also guys, let me know what content creator and guests you would like to see on. I've got a couple of people who have shown interest, which is exciting for me because I've not had people actually come to me and say, hey, I would like to come on, but that's starting to happen. All that extra weight, now that's actually impossible for technology to land that much stuff anywhere until recently, like in the last 20 or 30 years, and no one has been back since Apollo. Exactly. I like with that extra weight and the fact they would have to then probably assemble it because you're not going to be able to carry that whole. Like even no, he's a controversial figure, but he's quite literally leading space exploration at the moment. Like Elon, I don't even think Elon Musk could manage that at the moment. Watching Master and Commander right now. Glad you're enjoying Surly. Also, thank you for the advice on the thumbnails. I've made a change quite drastically on them. I'm actually quite proud of the YouTube thumbnail for this one. The world is a dome. No, I'm not going to make the joke about that. I don't want the comments. A guy I went out with once spent 2 hours trying to convince me. Yeah. Oh no. The fact these people exist horrifies me. Over on YouTube. Oh wow, YouTube's popping off today. Fun fact: King of Fiji got forced to put a constitutional king. He spent poo loads of money to not get in trouble with YouTube or TikTok. And Fiji was going broke and had to appoint a Brit in governance. And was forced to become a colony of UK. I might delve into that. F Ross, apologies on the name. DM me that on Instagram and I'll accept it, and then I'll use that to bounce off of and look into that. I don't know when I'll do a video on it, but that does sound interesting. I might do a video on how Fiji became a colony. Surly, I heard a new game theory host thinks the moon is fake. Wouldn't surprise me. One of the YouTubers I watch a lot, Sydney Watson, she's openly said she thinks the moon is fake. I would love to get her on to debate that. I would love just to have, like, there's a lot of figures there's a lot of people I'm starting to be able to get on because I'm starting to be noticeable enough, which sounds big-headed, but it's like it's just starting. Bearing in mind I've been working at this like close to for 3 years now. YouTube 2 years, TikTok 3. Yeah, my friend reminded me of a very valid point. The first landing brought back rocks and placed mirrors up there to allow the precise measurement of the distance of the moon. Exactly. And if you have a specific laser, you can shine it back from the moon now. So that is the current thing we do. You should have Nick Fuentes on. I think I would make Nick Fuentes cry. If I'm brutally honest, I would probably make Nick Fuentes cry. The guy doesn't have 2 brain cells to rub together to make a third. Like.
Okay, real quick.
Also, yeah, because I am like using this guy's video to base this off as we're going, and I know I'm pausing it to add in like my own stuff and reading your comments. But make sure you go and. I'm not subscribed. Whoopsie. Make sure you go and subscribe to Johnny Harris. Because he has made this video that we're building on, and then don't send him hate because he doesn't believe in the conspiracy. He is just making a video on it.
One of the big revolutions in science in recent decades is an understanding of our minds. We have learned more and more that our minds are actually just an organ called our brain that are like any other muscle. They can be trained and retrained and redirected, and that doing so dramatically changes how we see the world and how we experience the world. This goes
into an entire debate on consciousness. I'm not fully convinced that our consciousness is just locked into our brain, but that's me starting to go into some slightly more conspiracy theory stuff.
The whole field of mental health, which is honestly not much different than physical health. With physical health, we do exercise to like keep our bodies strong. With mental health, we're learning that you can also do exercise. It's called therapy. I've been doing therapy now for several years, and I can say with total confidence that it is a life changer. I mean, I've reshaped how I see the world and how I deal with difficult things.
I don't want to skip.
We all have difficult
I don't want to
things.
skip this,
And
guys.
all of this brings me to the sponsor of today's video, who is BetterHelp.
No,
BetterHelp
we're
is a
skipping it.
platform
I was gonna be nice so that the geezer got the money, because if it goes dips, like I know you can lose out money if you skip the sponsor segment. But I ain't promoting BetterHelp. Look into the shady stuff BetterHelp has done. Yeah. I'm not saying this guy's bad for promoting them. You, like, make your buck. I'll definitely be accepting Raid Shadow Legends, but yeah, I just know BetterHelp is meant to be very shady.
With that, let's dive back into this wild conspiracy theory of the moon landing.
Armstrong is on the moon. Neil Armstrong, standing on the surface of the moon on this July 20th, 1969.
That's one small step for man.
All right, so to give you some context.
So, BetterHelp's an entire different discussion. Your content is amazing. You deserve more credit. Thank you. The best way to help me with that is quite literally have my videos on in background, like pick a playlist and just have it on in the background to get the watch hours up so people see it. Like, you don't have to watch it, you just have it in the background, and simply share, like, comment, and share is the three most powerful things for doing that, because it pushes me on further on the algorithm. Yeah, because I don't know. I am working on something very different at the moment. I recently watched The Whale with Brendan Fraser. I'm going back to my university roots, and I'm going to be doing a complete analysis. And it's going to be the start of a new series called Historic Cinema, where I look on the societal repercussions and like the historical repercussions of each film. And The Whale really did hit me, and I really think it's an interesting, because it obviously had the fat sort of, the people said it was like fatphobic, and then there's the people like me who are like, this is an incredibly important film. Bob on the TikTok side said it's fake, it's made of crab cheese. Well, the Wallace and Gromit movie did make us think that. But yeah, to ask Sir Willie's question, answer Sir Willie's question over on the YouTube side, I don't know the ins and outs, but I just know that BetterHelp has been allegedly in Minecraft caught out not providing proper service, or like it's an AI person or something. I'm not 100% sure of why. I just know some people that have used the service, and I also know people, well, spoken to medical professionals who are like, this is naff. Don't take my word for it. Always do deeper research, because I may be wrong. I'm only repeating what third-party people heard. But yeah, I'm not a big fan of BetterHelp. By the way, asking someone to do something, was it boost you on TikTok is against their TOS? Really? But there's people on TikTok that say, like, subscribe and share all the time. I don't know. I'm just doing what the advice is from what we're going from. Wouldn't surprise me if TikTok's TOS is like that. Anyway, let's
on the moon landing.
Figure out.
I need to briefly explain World War II and the Cold War, which is something I've kind of done a lot on this channel. So instead of me doing it again, we hired someone with an old-timey, like, radio transatlantic accent to do it instead. Buckle up for this one.
In a world on the brink of destruction, the United States of America joined the Allied forces in the Second World War in 1941. The Big Three: the Soviet Union, Great Britain, and now the USA versus the Axis powers: Italy, Japan, and Nazi Germany. They sure did put up a fight, but the
Sorry, TikTok censors for the word for the Austrian Painter fan club word coming up. Forgot it's a YouTube video, so they're gonna get away.
Allied powers came out on top, you see. But then America and the USSR
Granted, the
got
scientists
real
were
cold
German on both sides. Like during the Cold War, the space race was literally just two sets of captured German scientists trying to get people they were previously shooting at or being shot at by into space. That's the space race entirely. And that was from Tepes over on the TikTok side.
Each other.
Is this a Vox documentary? No, it is not.
A tragic reversal of the old tales of enemies turned lovers. The communists found the United States to be exceedingly aggressive and quite trigger-happy with all their new military power, meddling in things they ought to be keeping.
For context here, the Americans kept the nuclear program secret from the Soviets because a capitalist society versus a communist society, even though Russia isn't communist anymore, China is some weird blend of totalitarian capitalism and communism, and America is more consumerism. Like political stance of today aside, obviously they were keeping it together because they saw that the Soviets were probably gonna be an enemy at some point, which was a safe bet. And then they didn't let the Chinese and the Soviets go to war, which would have solved a lot of modern problems, but also would have killed a lot of people. It's catch-22. History is a melting pot of bad decisions. Werner Braun... I'm not finishing that chat.
Their noses out of. Across the pond, the capitalist United States was fearful that the USSR was hankering to spread their communism across the whole globe. The war remained cold
Which wasn't
only
a bad
because both powers
idea.
had thousands of the most deadly weapons humanity had ever seen.
Ironically, if Trotsky had actually stayed in power, a lot of people are like, oh, the Soviets and the communists would have been a lot better under Trotsky. Trotsky believed, I've discussed this with Count Daedalus quite a lot, Trotsky believed in a world revolution, like the pure Marxist communist. Like, Trotskyism would have been worse globally than Stalinism. Stalinism was bad for the people who lived under Stalinist communism. Trotskyite communism would have been horrific because he would have wanted to start global wars. Yeah. I can imagine after Germany surrendered, a giant NBL player draft pick for the German scientists. Yeah, sound about right. I don't know if... Do you mean NBL or NFL? I don't know. I don't know American sports, so apologies. German scientists having beef like no one will be the first. Like, no, I will be the first. Trotsky got the ice pick lobotomy. He did. He very much
them
did.
against each other. It was something of a horrifying stalemate.
I'm also wearing my my Charles
Hello,
Darwin
I'm
shirt.
Diane Morgan. I know
Who
it
are
looks
you?
like I'm doing an audition for All Creatures Great and Small, but I actually wanted to talk to you about animals.
Uh-oh.
I love animals.
Okay, same.
Soon,
Yeah, I'm wearing-
the empires turned to other feats of strength. Psychological warfare,
Natural Museum.
spying, sport, proxy wars,
And
and
my
a
class.
race to
Just
advance their technology.
Actually, no, Darwin was...
And to top it all,
Christian, so
a
it's
race
still
like no other. A race to space.
At
Why
first,
did they
it is
have
very
to
clear
rename
that
the
the
space
Soviets are
race? I'm
winning
sorry,
the
no, this
race.
is gonna bug me now. So they've caught. So this, I'm assuming this segment is okay. The lead up, right? So but why call the space race the race to space? I don't know. Maybe I'm missing a piece of American history. Then it was actually called the race to space, and we call it space race.
They're launching dogs and plants into space and bringing them back alive. They send up satellites that orbit the moon and take photos of the far side that no one had seen.
The Soviets left a dog in space. If anyone ever tries to tell you that like communism is good, just remember the communists left a dog to die in space. I think the Americans probably did something just as bad. The Americans did stuff just as bad. Just remember, kids, main takeaway of this is governments are bad.
Before, they even put a human up into space to orbit around the entire Earth.
First space flight.
That could I would do there's a conspiracy. Well, there's like recordings that was done by two Italian brothers, where they claim to have a woman screaming as she re-enters. It's been debunked a couple times. I still kind of believe in it, which could be an interesting conspiracy to get into. I would probably have a guest on so I could bounce off with someone. And I would probably dive into it so I could actually have like a compelling argument. But that's an interesting one because it'll be a conspiracy that I actually kind of lean into. Tepes over on the TikTok side, they brought a monkey back and it died 2 hours later and the dog turned into paste. Nice. Humans are evil, man. That ad is all about Belgian techno anthem Pump Up Jam.
Made by a Soviet man.
The US needs to catch up, so President Eisenhower creates a brand new government agency dedicated entirely to space. And they eventually start to send up satellites and even people, but they don't get someone to orbit the entire Earth like the Russians did. Womp womp, the US is losing the space race. And this is where JFK gets up in front of the nation and declares that the US is setting a goal.
In this decade, we shall make up and move ahead.
He's declaring what would surely be the ultimate finish line in this global race for power.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade.
An American astronaut eventually orbits the Earth.
Not because they are easy.
Russia then puts the first woman in space while also getting the first person to walk in space.
But because they are hard.
The NASA teams are pulling all-nighters year after year, trying to figure out how they're going to make good on JFK's big promise, to somehow get a man on the moon by the end of the decade. Things are heating up. Time is running out. And then...
Launch sequence engaged. We are go.
Yep. The space race left a lot of people unaliving in horrific ways. There is a history video I want to do on one of the Apollo disasters where like the O-rings didn't work and that like burst in a frame. We've all seen the footage of that. Because they were racing. Actually that was actually after we was on the moon. But yeah. Like the race to get on the moon unalived a lot of people. Afterwards, like space exploration is often romanticized as like this boyhood goal. Like now obviously we've got a bit more equality, so it's like more childhood, but like at the time it was more like, oh, you know, young boy wants to be an astronaut. It's very fucking dangerous. Mind-blowing speech from JFK. That is probably one of the greatest speeches in human history. It's up there with "We'll fight them on the beaches and in the fields." Like yeah, Churchill and JFK were amazing. They were masters of speeches. Unlike Woodrow Wilson, because Woodrow Wilson is a... See you next Tuesday. Is this pro-Russia propaganda? It's just at that point in the space race, the Soviets were winning. It was also important to distinct between Soviet and Russian, because it's a different mindset. It's very different. Like a lot of the Russians today, if you look at people like Konstantin Kishin and Angry Russian Dad on TikTok, they're very much against that regime. So that's why you'll often find me making a distinct difference between saying Soviet and Russian. It's the same as a lot of anti-Ayatollah people from Persia will call themselves Persian and not Iranian, or Iranian, however you want to say it. Because the Islamic Republic of Iran isn't Persia. There's a very distinct difference to that identity. There's a very distinct difference between the identity of the Soviets to the Russians. Apollo 13 was a great movie, it was. I'm seeing it a long time now.
NASA's disaster was a major setback, but the stakes were too high to give up. The space race had become much more than a technological rivalry. Winning the race to the moon would mean winning the ideological war for the world. Would it be communism or capitalism? They couldn't give up now, so they kept going. In 1968, NASA finally gets a spaceship, the Apollo 8, to orbit the moon with astronauts aboard. There's hope. Russia is able to exchange a crew in space. For both sides, a moon trip suddenly seems within reach. But who will get
Imagine if they'd both got there like the same day. Imagine if they'd both imagine if both the Soviets and the Americans, they like landed 2 foot away from each other and were just like and then they're like just scrambling to get their like suits on so they can go out there like sprint, like we've got to get out first. like, just racing for the hatch. Like, we need to get out as quick as possible so we can be the first one on the moon. I don't know. That'd be, I think there is an alternate history where, like, the Soviets do get on the moon. But yeah, like, people forget how tantalizingly close the Soviets were to getting on the moon. But that would be, that would be so hilarious. Can you imagine, like, if both rockets were there and they were just sitting there, like trying to get to the moon just first, and then they're, like, racing out and jumping out on the moon, like, we were first! And then Neil Armstrong's just, like, having a fist fight with a cosmonaut on it. I'd like to see the USA versus USSR. Hey, yes! Telekinesis. I want to see Neil Armstrong fist fight a Russian on the moon. So Soviet on the moon.
They're first.
I, Richard Billhouse Nixon, do solemnly swear.
God, Nixon. Has anyone seen the Doctor Who episode where the Doctor meets Nixon? Like, tell me, Doctor, will I be remembered? Oh, Nixon, they're never going to forget you.
And then, after hundreds of millions of dollars and countless focused hours by the country's brightest minds, comes a morning on a summer day in Houston, Texas, in 1969.
Yay, 1969. God, I mean, that's a pretty quick turnaround to go from, like,
three men buckle up. Hundreds of millions of people around the world find
Imagine
themselves
being a geezer on Apollo 10. Like, you were one mission away from being the first man on the moon. I'd be so angry.
Glued to their television sets because the greatest achievement of mankind might happen. Then starts the 5, 4, 3,
2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11. Tower cleared.
Here we got a roll program.
Neil Armstrong reporting the roll and pitch program, which puts Apollo 11 on a proper heading.
Roll complete and the pitch is programmed.
The rocket heads towards the finish line, that pearly orb that humans have stared at and mythologized about, fixated on. And they're finally going to touch it.
Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
4 days and 200,000 miles later, it's July 20th, 1969, months before JFK's deadline was up. Two of the three...
I like the fact that the entirety of NASA works the same way as I did with university assignments. Like, it's like we're gonna get close. We literally have for them it was like a couple months. For me it was like a couple hours to just submit, and then I still won. Being smart in uni can backfire because you can like sit there and you got a German to do all the work. I didn't think of that. I didn't actually get a German to do all the work. Probably would have been expensive to do, but you can do it. If you get caught, you're then getting kicked out of university. I didn't, however. I had to sadly sit there with all the books and do it myself.
3 astronauts disconnect from the orbiting ship and descend onto the moon's surface.
I'm literally better than NASA. I still left it all to the last minute, but I didn't get German to do the work.
And then...
There you go.
Oh, it's beautiful, Mike. It really is.
Pops the adverts, man. What kind of hentai is this?
Oof. These fumes. The race had clearly been won. A line had been crossed, not just for the global superpower who did this, but for all humans who had just taken their obsession for exploration to new heights. But right away, after this event, even though it was broadcast on live television for the whole world to see, there were rumblings of doubt. About a year after the landing, you start to see newspaper articles casting doubt that any of this actually happened. 2 years after the landing, we see James Bond running away from a bunch of security guards through the Nevada desert when he somehow stumbles upon a secret moon landing film set.
Wait. Is he about to say that people were using James Bond Are they about to say that it was all revealed by James Bond? James Bond revealed that the moon landing was a hoax. Okay, right. This is the bit we've been waiting for, to be fair. I've gone on the tangents about the history. This is the bit. So I'll
Resulting
stay
in
quiet
this
for a second.
moon buggy car chase thing through the desert. It was all a tongue-in-cheek reference to this budding conspiracy that the whole thing was faked.
Okay,
a few
so
years
they were
later, a
referencing
former U.S.
conspiracy,
Navy
okay.
officer and Apollo rocket technical writer comes out with this book.
I think it was an intuitive feeling that what was
On Daedalus on YouTube site. I can't say that, I'll get done off TikTok. You stupid male chicken. You're doing a video about... Tell you what. Next week, next Sunday, if you're free, we can come on and we can discuss it. I'm just going through the actual laughability because the king, who I don't know if he's still in chat, he picked for me to do it this week. Also, you knew I was doing this. I sent you the thumbnail last night. Sean Connery is the best James Bond. No, Pierce Brosnan.
was being shown was not real.
The book is a long evaluation of evidence that claims that
And yes, I stand by that. Pierce Brosnan was the best James Bond.
we never actually went to the moon. This book makes the case that the moon landing was so political that the US, having failed to develop a feasible plan to get to the moon, pulled off this secretive staging of the event, all as a propaganda play to get ahead of the Soviets. And he
Okay. Next, right. In the TikTok and the YouTube chats, if you want me and Count to go over this next Sunday, where Count will actually debunk it straight up, rather than me laughing at how stupid it is. So like, I'll put a poll up on YouTube. Shall if we do a debate, that means I've got to be on the side of it. Okay, I'll play devil's advocate. Should Count and I cover this next weekend? You watch him say no, he doesn't want to do it now. Right, the poll's up on YouTube, guys. I'll put the poll up on YouTube. Vote there if you want. Right, okay.
emphasizes the point that, you know, it's the Cold War. It's not that far-fetched that the U.S. government would
if Count
come
does
up
this,
with some
Count is going
deception.
to rip this to shreds. I need to find someone who genuinely believes it, though, if I'm going to work it. I might not do it next weekend. If I'm going to have Count on, TikTok chat isn't a democracy. I'm not going to lie. Every time I try and set up a poll, one of my mods comes in and changes it to "Is history dead or yapping?" Mr. Luton, you know who you are. Yeah. I'm. You know what? If someone can find me a creator who fully believes the moon landing is, let me see what I can do.
Campaign in the name of beating communism, which is like totally fair actually. But that's not evidence, that's just speculation. He does go on to present a bunch of photos and explanations that turn into the foundation of what would become a widespread theory that the moon landing was faked.
The lunar landings were more than likely fabricated.
Well, of course, they're interviewing a geezer from Shane Dawson, the cat shagger, and nonce. Allegedly in Minecraft. There you go, can't sue me now. Just find a communist, don't decide and deny any Soviet failure. That's brilliant. Okay, I've got to end the poll on YouTube now. Just find a communist. Oh, I wish I could save the TikTok chat like I can save the YouTube chat. Tepes, that's brilliant. Just find a communist. Oh, Prax, this is Prax Ben's secret account. Just find a communist. That's brilliant. Right.
Why wouldn't the moon landing be fake? You know, why wouldn't we fake that?
We did not land men on the moon.
The moon?
Yeah, it's fake.
And I would bet my life on it.
This is actually the reason I wanted to make this video, is I wanted to understand what
Why
the
is
foundation
Vice
of this
News?
conspiracy theory
Vice
actually was.
News.
People
Sorry.
who
Why
truly
is
earnestly
Vice News pushing this? Like, I know Vice is far... Thank you for sharing the live over on the TikTok side, Ben. I know Vice News is far from journalistic integrity. In fact, most places are far from journalistic integrity now. I know but straight up, like, because I've noticed this is weird, and I'm like, yeah, exactly, because Vice are coming in. I'm not even drunk. I'm gonna do a slight run here because I'm noticing this more and more. The anti-moon landing people are disproportionately left-wing. It's a very anti-American conspiracy, I'm noting. Tepes came all the way over here to take a screenshot of this. Thank you, Wooly. Just find the communist don't deny any Soviet failure. I might... yeah, I'm going to do a screen grab as well. I didn't think of that, actually. Just find the communist don't deny any Soviet failure. This is my favourite comment I've ever had. This is my favourite comment I've ever had. Tefes, this is brilliant. Thank you. Right, but yeah. Like, in an age where they're so against misinformation, why are they spreading misinformation? Yes, I'm free speech. Obviously, I'm a free speech absolutist. It's the only political thing I will ever go on about on any of these channels aside from Twitter. If you want my full political rants, you go to Twitter. I'm a free speech absolutist. They have a right to say it. I'm got an out of context clip, so if that actual video is Vice, like, having people discuss and debate, fine. If not, you like, it's just worrying that you would have something like that. Historical misinformation is where I really do stand out, and I can really, like, get my teeth in and go, no, you're fucking stupid. To actually, like, pardon my French, but sometimes you need to use it.
Believe it. What do they think happened here? I'm not going to go through all of the evidence and theories here because they're kind of all over the place, but let me show you some of the major ones. The first major one starts here.
How come there aren't any stars in this photo?
Oh,
there's no atmosphere or light pollution on the moon. Shouldn't this photo look like this?
Well, it turns out that if you want to capture the stars, even on the moon, you have to open up your camera for a very long time and let a bunch of light in. Trust me, I know this because I spent months of my...
Okay. Those of you who don't know, I studied film and television at university. I finished university with a 2-1 BA Hons in film and television, which is Bachelor of Arts Honours degree in film and television. Everything he just said is correct. You have to open your sight aperture if you want to correctly ascertain images of the stars. You have to do that if you want to do it from Earth, if you want to do it on the moon, if you want to do it on Mars. That is the dumbest piece of evidence, and it shows that I'm getting angry. This is exactly what King wanted. A million clips of me getting really, really angry about it. That is the inability, the cognitive dissonance you have to think that's a genuine piece of evidence. You have to have zero understanding of how cameras work, right? We've all got basic film equipment on our phones now. I've got this phone specifically to film for because it saves money, because it can film in 4K, and I've started using its 4K features as I've got better internet speeds to upload. As you probably noticed, the Yule video was very high quality, and it does run in 4K. If you genuinely believe that the lack of stars in the images of the moon landing is genuine proof, please seek help. Vice News is the Tucker Carlson media, isn't Tucker Carlson media? I don't watch enough Tucker Carlson stuff to really comment on stuff. He said some stupid stuff in the past. But he's just the right-wing version. really.
My life trying to photograph a galaxy, and I learned a lot about how not to photograph stars. And let me just tell you, it's a lot harder than it looks. When I was doing that, I was opening up my shutter for 30 seconds, and I took hundreds of images just to get this one shot.
Yep.
So when you're on the bright moon and you're trying to photograph a bunch of guys in bright white reflective suits, you're not opening up your shutter.
Count Daedalus has done similar sort of photos, and he's explained to me how hard it is actually to get space photography correct. And so this will be one that both me and him could really sink into. But yeah, space photography, filming stars. A lot of the time when you're doing night shoots and you need stars in, you will add them in post because you're not going to get an effective shot. Yeah.
For a very long time, you're not letting in a bunch of light. There's basically no chance of getting a decent shot of the stars in this environment. But you get something. I mean, if you take the photo and blast up the brightness, you can kind of see some traces of the stars if you really need to do that.
Okay, but what about these shadows? Some of these shadows go this way, and some go this way. Shouldn't the shadows be parallel if they're all coming from one source, the sun?
Yes, the only light source in this photo is the sun. But you have to remember that light bounces off things, especially white things. So you have light bouncing off of lots of different surfaces, which is one reason the shadows look a little weird. Oh, and remember,
the moon reflects back to us. So there's multiple light sources in the image because the moon is reflecting the light from the sun. So it's not really a light source, it's more of a giant mirror. But our education system has failed us.
remember that you're looking at light that was filtered through a lens. A camera lens distorts the direction of things depending on how wide or tight it is.
Okay, but what about this flag? This flag is waving, but there's no wind on it.
No!
Yes, the flag is kind of waving. But remember that this isn't a normal flag. NASA had to...
I would like to point out, right, as someone who spent time in film studios, as someone who has produced live shows, as someone who has produced the video recordings of dance shows, the flag won't wave in a studio unless you put the effort in to make it wave. I can, like, the film side of things, I don't understand. You, like, and it takes a tremendous amount of energy and of effort to get the flag to wave how you want it. He's going to explain why it does in a second, but yeah. The moon's surface is very reflective, but not anywhere near as reflective as the Earth's surface. Yeah, true.
Make a custom flag for the Apollo missions that had a horizontal rod right up here so that the flag wouldn't look like this. It had to look nice and American and patriotic. You had to be able to see it. So when the astronauts were sticking the flag in the lunar soil, the
100%, I feel like this sort of thing happened. There was just a really angry KGB agent watching it happen, going, "This is not, this did not happen. The flag waving, that means that they did it in a studio in the middle of a desert." It's done by a KGB agent. Well, right, next weekend, because the poll was pretty conclusive. Did I end the poll? I think I did. Yeah, it was 100%. We will look into this. I need to see if I can get a proper... The only content creator I know who is 100% the moon landing was fake is Sydney Watson. And there's no way I'm going to be able to acquire Sydney Watson in a week. I need to see if I can get in contact. I mean, she's got, close to 1 million subscribers now. So, there's no way. There's no way I'm going to get Sydney Watson in. So I need to find someone who's going to be really pro-moon landing. So I can, mediate the debate. I don't know any content creators who are really pro, the hoax. So it could just be us two. Do you know what? I would happily just sit there and let you absolutely rip it apart. I'm over here to say hi. Good to see you over on YouTube side, Topics. I'm glad to see people crossing over a bit cross-pollination, which is the exact reason I started doing the lives on both TikTok and YouTube at the same time, because it allows people to see I'm live on YouTube, because YouTube is awful at letting people know I'm live. Never heard of the opinion of I do know the name. I'm not 100% sure on it. KGB agent shakes his fist at the moon. Have Nick Fuentes on. I'm not getting Nick Fuentes on. If I get Nick Fuentes on my show, it's going to be 2.5 hours of me and like 5 other guests who I'm going to get on who would jump at the chance to make that man cry. Nick Fuentes, I publicly challenge you to a boxing match. Skinny anti-Semite.
Of that
There you go, King. Send that to Nick Fuentes.
movement caused the material to move, and it kind of looks like it's wavy.
Ever wondered what's inside your toothbrush? We did. We found outdated design, a lot of plastic, and...
Okay, but look how they're moving. This is so unnatural. It's almost like they're being pulled up by a wire. Oh, and look, did you catch that? That looks like a wire.
Okay, wait, just confession here. I was watching all of these conspiracy documentaries.
Is that better? Is that better? Is the mic audio? See, Nick Fuentes is trying to take me out. Nick Fuentes is trying to be. Is the mic issues fixed? Are the mic issues fixed, guys? I see so Woolly's going on about loud grainy noise. That happens sometimes. I probably knock the microphone. Come here to run TikTok and try and shut me down. Yeah, cool. Right, mic's fixed. Nick Fuentes and the communists are working together. Well, it wouldn't be the first time a fascist and a communist have worked together. Anyways, to tell the Brits there's a rock on the moon and the Brits will land there faster than the speed of light. It does make me laugh. There is an alternate universe somewhere. Or if you believe, like me, that the universe and time are both infinite, that means because I don't believe. A slight side note. I don't believe in parallel universes. I think it's a stupid idea. I think the universe itself is infinite. I think space and time are both infinite. Because the idea that something like the Big Bang being the start of stuff is just stupid to me. I'm completely illiterate on space stuff. I mean, I used to be big into it when I was younger. But then dinosaurs and history sort of took over. But like to me, yeah, like the idea of the Big Bang being the start of everything. I mean, there's a couple of scientists trying to do the maths that like what was before that, and I do think that to go back to Einstein's question, either it always existed or it never did. Like that's the only way. I'm probably definitely misquoting Einstein, yeah, but yeah, I can't see time having a beginning and an end, because you can't have something from nothing. I don't know. Maybe Count will explain this to me next week. Looks, there's no British. Looks, no, the British in 1940 Space Knights. Imagine us going up in like full suits of armor. That's the mysterious third. So you have like so in the alternate history we discussed earlier, where like the Soviets in one ship, the Americans in the other, and they're just flying towards the moon, trying desperately to race and jump out. Then just like this little this little Lancia just comes out of nowhere. And it's just some geezer in a top hat drinking tea going, hey, we'll get to the moon first. Telly here. Oh, I want to make this. I want to write this book. Oh, we did get to the moon first, but there wasn't anyone to civilize. Oh, let's not go into that. The Irish Republicans are going to run through the chat.
Documentaries like while we're doing this story, and they're like incredibly tantalizing. This is the one that actually kind of got me. I was like, wait a minute, they are moving really weird. The motion is so off kilter, it looks like they're being like dragged by a wire. So to figure this out, we actually talked to a physicist and a meteorologist who helpfully explained just how different life in 1/6.
Yeah, also to both chats, if you know any content creators who are very pro hoax, who are probably in the realm of people I can get in contact with, like, let me know and I'll talk to them. Now, the Soviets and the Yanks get there and they're already a Greg's and a Sports Direct setup. See, British colonisation wasn't normally about Greg's and Sports Direct. It was more, hey, do you have spice? We don't use that, but we want it. Yeah, like, I had to do the awkward silence for dramatic effect. But yeah, that's basically the entirety of British colonial history. That and fighting the Chinese for the right to sell them drugs. Can you imagine that in 24, like, the streets of London? like just being like complete warfare between the police because the gangs are like, we have the right to trade drugs. Yeah, that happened twice, by the way. The British Empire had a war to sell drugs in China. Yeah. I get flack a lot because I don't go hard on British Empire because my rule is history is very complex. Obviously, overall, as a libertarian, I'm very anti-imperialism in any form, but you know, you have stuff like the West Africa Squadron. Before I get, because the same I talk about the British Empire annoys me because I get the simps who are like the West Africa Squadron, we stopped slavery, hurrah! And then like you have the people going the Opium Wars, the Potato Famine, and I'm like, I don't want to get involved in this. I'm going to stick to Rome. There's no one egregiously angry on either side of the Roman thing. Moon didn't have the resources, so we had to build. Have you seen Wallace and Gromit? It was clearly made of cheese. You can't if you're still watching 100%. I'm going to push the argument that the moon is genuinely made of cheese. How else will the astronauts get a taxi and some new Adidas shoes? Adidas. I'm not American. I've been spent too much time talking to Americans.
Gravity is. I mean, think about it. Our intuition for everything we know is calibrated to Earth's gravity. It's everything we've ever known. It's how our brains interpret the world. It's how our muscles calibrate to the world. So when you're watching these videos of these astronauts in suits that weigh 180 pounds, clunking around with their Earth gravity trained muscles on the moon, you see some really weird movements. But I mean, who knows? Maybe the two scientists we talked to are actually in on it. Maybe they're some of the 500,000 Americans.
I'm actually quite looking forward to this.
Who were paid by the government to keep the hoax alive. All so that we could feel like America is better than the Soviet Union in 1960.
Playing devil's advocate. Playing devil's advocate. The American government did the Tuskegee experiment. They did Waco. They did Ruby Ridge. The British government has an entire island for anthrax. Do I believe that the United States government would do something like this in a desperate hoax? Yes. Do I believe it's feasible? No. Fairly certain. As much as Adam Ruins Everything is a egotist, I'm not gonna start more beef. But there's a video Adam Ruins Everything. Yeah, Adam Ruins Everything. I know it's controversial. He's very, very left wing. Lets his politics get in the way away a lot. He's very anti-electoral college. Which since I've actually learnt more about the electoral college in America, I'm much less against. Now I understand it. And I know he's obviously been called out a lot for presenting very one-sided facts, but his video debunking the moon landing was a hoax idea is actually very good because it points out, I don't know if they're going to cover it in this one, but it points out that for Kubrick, I'm just holding an old Kopberg lid, I don't know why, for Kubrick to have like got the lighting right to look like the sun, the lighting equipment that they would have needed, one wasn't invented at the time. I think they actually needed a specific type of LEDs. I don't know why I'm doing the greatest LEDs. They needed the greatest LEDs. Kubrick had them. The Kubrick got the greatest LEDs to fake the moon landing. But yeah, like the stuff that would have needed to have like come to fruition for it to have happened is just so unrealistic. And like that's a very good episode of Adam Ruins Everything. I'm nothing against him, you know, you do you, boo. You do like your stuff for your politics, but like yeah, like I think that's a very good argument because the light again, filming the moon landing is like, I'm not as good as debunking it via science, but when it comes to the filming equipment, because I studied it, like we actually in uni we actually brought up faking the moon landing, and today now, and like unless you gave me like a good 200 million, I would struggle to fake the moon landing. Like struggle, unless I did the entire thing via CGI. Like, but with practical effects, that's going to be expensive. It's going to take me a couple of years. And I would still struggle with today's technology. Aeronautics has massively evolved since the time of Opium War. Yes. Yes, thankfully we're not doing Opium Wars anymore. And I did a JFK. We gave them Teletubbies' son, Babyface, to fake it. What? Adam, a presenter of documentaries. Yes, that one. That Adam. I'm not going to start a beef with. I mean, I'm far too small for him to notice or care. But yeah, he's very famous for. I think him and Joe Rogan had a debate, but I'm not going to get into that because that's politics. And we know the rules. No politics on YouTube or TikTok. Now we could physically do it. Back then it would have been absolutely impossible. There simply wasn't the ability to do it. Exactly. And again, as I'm saying, with the technology of today, with my filmmaking skill, bearing in mind I've directed films, I've been up for awards for the films I've directed. I've done YouTube for 3 years. I've worked professionally in the YouTube field, and I'm currently looking at jobs working professionally in that field again, looking at the analytics and how cameras work and stuff. So I've done this professionally. Trust me when I tell you, it's nigh on impossible to do now. Well, not impossible, but it would be incredibly difficult. Back then, like, no way would they have, like, because the technology that they would have had to have been secretly using then would have ended up in military tech. And since only yesterday were they announcing that we're getting Death Star space lasers, like, I'm gonna need evidence for these films and award source. Trust me, bro. I do have them. They're just on my LinkedIn. I'm not revealing my too much of my personal information, because that's how you get people messaging your employer and go, he was mean about the Ottoman Empire one time. It's Constantinople. Anyways, moving on.
69. Maybe. Could be. Okay, listen, I'm not going to go through every single one of
I've
these
just realized
theories.
that his
There's a lot
jumper
of
says Apollo,
evidence
USA
out there. Like, why isn't there exhaust on this flame? Or why did the Eagle lander not leave a crater? What about the radiation exposure that these astronauts would have gotten? What about Neil Armstrong's boot print? Or the loss...
I'm removing your TikTok mod privileges. You made me go through this. You made me sit through this pain. My options were today's video of, like, what I was reacting to was Brazilian folklore or the moon landing. Why did I pick this? Also, accidentally flipped off the camera there. I mean, today in modern CGI we could do it, but that's what I'm saying. If I was to get that, because I'm very much like Nolan. I don't like that. You can tell with the CGI stuff slightly off. But again, with the CGI, it's going to be incredibly expensive. It's going to be easier to do, but it's going to be incredibly expensive. If I was to do it to look 100% realistic, it would need to be practical effects. And for practical effects, it would still be incredibly difficult. Because CGI, you're still going to be able to tell it's not real. If you watch the Avatar movies, you can still tell they're CGI characters. There is some models of, like, photorealistic CGI, but it's so unbelievably expensive that it's still unfeasible for movie studios to use. Like, if you wanted photorealistic CGI of the moon landing, you're looking at a couple $2 billion. Maybe a lot. Yeah, because of the amount of time on the footage. Because you got to remember, like, animating photorealistic, the processing power from the computer you need is insane. Yeah, like when you're playing, I mean, the new Spider-Man games are really the bad example. If you were playing like the first modern Spider-Man game, the CGI is good. It's not photorealistic. Photorealistic CGI, like even playing Assassin's Creed, any video game, you still know it's a video game. The only time that changes when you put on Oculus Rift headset or any kind of headset, because your brain then starts balancing out and it adds in the stuff. It's why people can see like awful CGI on a headset, but their brain will start piecing it together because it's the only informational input, and it doesn't play in with the rest of the world. I need to speak to my psychologist friend about this. Over on the TikTok side, some of the Adam, and I think it's Adam Conover or something. He's got the weird quip. He cried a lot during the writers and actors strikes. Show count, he'll confirm or deny. Okay, we'll do that next time. What are the top TV apps for ancient civilizations right now? History hits good, but it's more medieval history. If you want content creators, specifically Kings and Generals has got some amazing ancient civilization stuff. No one's really doing the Bronze Age, to my knowledge. If you like more the archaeological side, specifically the artistic stuff, Historical Hands doing some good stuff. History with Hilbert is good, but again, he tends to lean more on Anglo-Saxon history, which crosses between ancient and medieval. I'm doing some good stuff on the ancient history. I haven't done it in a while though. There's no one really stepping out. If you want really good unbiased work for ancient history, I recommend the Metatron. A lot of people don't like him. He spends a lot of time debunking both the Eurocentrists and the Afrocentrists, particularly over Egypt. He gets a lot of flack because he does this thing called look at the evidence, and that means he often comes out like the right wing have claimed him for a while, and he's gone, I'm not right wing, I'm just a proper academic, and then now the right wing are mad at him because he actually said recently. He actually he did a video on gay marriage in the ancient world, and the right wing are mad at him because he pulled up a piece of evidence that goes against that stuff. Like, he doesn't care about upsetting his audience. So if you want completely unbiased ancient history, particularly on stuff like was Elagabalus trans and all that sort of stuff, I very strongly recommend Metatron. Shadowversity is good. Again, he's medieval, and he does have more of a right wing bias. Yeah. History Revealed's good, although he's more focusing on certain modern conflicts I'm not going to cover here because I don't need the comments. No, I don't think Count's covered anything ancient. Count's more modern history. Yeah, that's about all that comes to mind currently. Someone in the chat's going to say oversimplified, and if you say oversimplified, watch some proper creators. Joking, I love oversimplified. He does some brilliant work and he does condense down a lot of history. It's just not for me because if you've watched my videos, you know I pour in far too many facts. The fact that we're an hour into a video that's only 27 minutes long, and we still got another 10 minutes to get through on the video, on the live, and this isn't stuff like the video I'm doing on the whale and dissecting that as a historical piece. I haven't even got to the bit where I'm doing the dissecting. I'm still on the bit where I'm just recapping the film and explaining my thought process throughout the film. And I'm working on a Selkie video, which was both of those videos were meant to be short little projects, and they're both looking like they're not going to come out until the middle of March. Because my videos are now getting longer and more complex, and obviously with less time, but such is life. But I'm happier with the content I'm putting out now, rather than sticking to a every 2-week deadline. There are a few new game engines that are extremely close to real-looking graphics, but most don't have that capacity. Yeah, exactly. You still get that slight uncanny valley. Which gains Unreal Engine 5, which was flabbergasting accurate, but it isn't perfect. But it's only small snippets we get. For example, there's not been any, to my knowledge, major games. To do that, especially for the amount of time that we have the footage for, I mean, maybe I'm exaggerating, but you're looking at least $1 billion worth of CGI, aren't you?
Lost tapes.
Also, I love the fact that it's got moon landing hoax. So I don't know why he blurs this out, but I suppose it's to give the old school computer feel. But I love moon landing hoax society. Also, guys, if you know a flat earther, just remember there is a Twitter page and a YouTube page called the Dinosaur Earth Society, and I highly recommend sending them there because I have told multiple flat earthers that I'm a dinosaur earther and I believe the Earth looks like a dinosaur. They get very, oh, that's stupid, that's preposterous. Ironic.
Don't get me started on lost tapes. We actually had a whole section in the script about the lost tapes, and ultimately it didn't make the cut.
What lost
now listen,
tapes? Okay,
I want
that's
it to
gonna
be
be
clear
something I'm gonna
that
have
you
to
should
explore
not
on
be
my own.
ashamed if you actually want answers to these questions.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Especially in a time where all of us are kind of renegotiating our relationship with trust in governmental institutions. But I will tell you that after earnestly looking into this stuff, none of the presented evidence comes anywhere close to the burden of proof and evidence I would need to see to believe that the moon landing was a hoax. I will put resources in our source doc of the many instances of astrophysicists and scientists walking you through all this stuff. I think it's useful to look at. Before we move on with our story of the conspiracy theory, let me use this moment to say a word about human neurology and visual information, something I think about a lot. For me, when I sit through the evidence-based debunk on these theories, which is something we did for this story, it helps me understand the limits of human senses. Our eyes and ears and logical thinking brains were optimized for very different problems than evaluating the physics of our fellow Homo sapiens jumping around on a baby planet 200,000.
To be fair, that does look quite goofy. To be fair, that does look quite goofy.
Miles away. Like, we're not set up for this stuff. Going through the conspiracy theory and then going through the debunks reminds me why we as a species developed other ways of sensing, other ways of measuring and knowing things about the world, other tools that aren't as intuitive to us, but that extend our power to know things that are real, that are true. If you don't lean on these tools, in other words, if you don't look to science in your evaluation and instead rely on your optic nerve feeding grainy pixels.
Note to the editor of this YouTube channel, if you're going to do a zoom and then you need to edit out and back out of the zoom, you're probably zooming too fast because you're zooming again. So the editor of the YouTube channel, if you're watching this, don't do the double zoom. Don't do that. The second his hair gets cut off, you have to edit it back. Just don't. Just slow the pace of your zoom.
Into your great ape brain, I think we can all agree that you'll take for truth things that are not true. Okay, neurology section is over. Let's get back to it. If you're going to go down this rabbit hole and indulge your conspiracy mind like I did for this story, let's talk about what people think actually happened here. Like, all of this footage and all of these photos, what do the moon hoaxers think we're looking at? One of the most common explanations is that the US, afraid that they would be embarrassed in front of the global stage because they would fail on JFK's big promise, hired a famed Hollywood director, Stanley Kubrick, who had just released a groundbreaking space movie, and they used his visual skills to deceive the world, filming the moon landing on a soundstage.
On a side note, I have it here. It's one... have I got it? How far down is it? There it is. 2001: A Space Odyssey, probably off camera, yes, way too far down. 2001: A Space Odyssey is one of the best films of all time.
The middle of the desert. I mean, look, this rock has a perfect C on it. Is that a prop? These misaligned shadows, they explain as studio.
Your live visibility is not eligible for recommendation. May contain unoriginal. Oh yeah, of course. I played it for too long.
The flag was waving because there was air conditioning in the studio, and these photos were actually taken by Stanley Kubrick's crew. All of these movements, they say, were done with wires and slow motion, and that black starless sky is just a black cloth backdrop.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In 1977, the conspiracy theory had spread enough that NASA had to come out and issue a fact sheet responding to the claims. The first sentence of which is just, yes, astronauts did land on the moon. Then the movie comes out.
You can tell the guy who wrote that, working in NASA, was just so done. Like, he was sitting there, he goes, he comes around to sees his family every Thanksgiving, and he's just sitting there, and the first thing, I think the moon landing was fake, yeehaw! And, like, you can just tell from the fact he opened up starts that letter, that document, with, yes, astronauts landed on the moon. He starts that document with, yes, astronauts landed on the moon. Like, you could just tell he was done.
In 1977, about the government faking a space mission, this time to Mars, to save face to the American people. But the space race was over. It wasn't the focus anymore. And eventually, so was the Cold War. This moon landing theory became more and more fringe. But inevitably, like any other good, tantalizing conspiracy theory, it was eventually repackaged and put into one of these.
Fun fact, the only airport in Nauru has, connecting it to the rest of the world, was built by the Japanese in World War II. Don't want to give the Japanese too much credit from World War II, to be honest, considering Unit 732 or 731. Aliens is the best space movie ever. Have you seen the original trilogy of Star Wars? Alien and Aliens are very good movies. They're some of the only horror movies I'll actually watch.
It's really spooky, cheesy cable news documentaries. In 2001, Fox News aired this documentary.
Of course it was Fox! Of course, oh, Shen Yun, China before communism. I do want to go and see Shen Yun at some point. Because, China before communism, before the dark times.
On conspiracy theory, did we land on the moon?
Yes.
It was basically just a repackaging of all the old theories, but for a new audience. But now it was the dawn of the internet age, and NASA had to respond to this Fox News doc by reissuing the fact sheet that they issued in 1977, but this time on a website. An innocent foreshadow to combating information on the internet. They had no idea what was coming. The doc gave the conspiracy new energy, new followers, and soon a conspiracy theorist was following Buzz Aldrin around a hotel, pestering him and demanding him to swear on the Bible that he landed on the moon.
He smacked it.
And Buzz punched him in the face. Shortly after that, a French mockumentary came out, laying out evidence that Stanley Kubrick...
I need to see Iron Sky. They made 2 Iron Sky movies. Apparently, they're completely unhinged. Like, one the Austrian Painters fan club is on the moon, and then the next one they're like riding dinosaurs in the center of the earth. Like, I know Iron Sky is like meant to be completely unhinged.
Kubrick did film the moon landing. The problem is people...
Also, isn't Sarah Palin the president in that? In one of them? I don't know.
Thought it was real.
There's a fake documentary, not a real documentary, but a fake, like a mockumentary, where he's admitting
Joe
and
Rogan.
people are talking about. Have you seen that one?
No, but that makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of people are like, dude, you didn't even know there's an
I
actual
can't read that
real
message
interview
out.
with
I'll
him
get
where he
in trouble on
admits
both
that he
YouTube and
faked the
TikTok.
moon landing.
But
it's not.
Yeah.
It's fake.
Just saying, people go praise Fox News. Fox News 1 is just controlled opposition, if you really want to go into it. Same as CNN, they're all bought and paid for. All of the backers, you trace the money. Always follow the money. But yeah, Fox News is not a reliable news source, neither is CNN. There's a new service called Groundwork or something or other. Konstantin Kissin and his mate from Trigonometry have been pushing it a lot recently, where it takes all of the news sources from left and right wing, because sadly in our modern world we have to look at all media sources through a political lens, because you look at their backers and it shows you what issues are mostly covered by left wing and right wing. It also shows you the issues that are all covered by them, like where each one sits. And I highly recommend that service if you can afford it. If not, there are free versions that are a bit less like in detail. But yeah, don't. This is like I'll admit I'm a very big believer in a lot of like the Fae and ghosts and stuff. Very recently sort of come to Christ sort of thing. So I do have a lot more of an open mind to that sort of stuff. But what I will say is you have to, when you're doing a documentary like that, so there's a very famous documentary on the Animal Planet aired about mermaids, and the way as a kid it was laid out, like I do believe that in some form of evolutionary capacity it's not implausible that we could at some point have had mermaids. Do I believe it was fish scale people? No. Do I believe that there could be some aquatic species of hominid that appeared at some point? It's not implausible in the evolutionary tree, and if they do have enough intelligence to avoid us, then we wouldn't see them. However, the way the Animal Planet documentary is laid out is that they actually play the fake stuff and the real stuff. So there's it's not the bloop recording, because the bloop's the space one. No, that's the wow signal. It is the bloop from the ocean. They play a load of signals similar to the bloop signal, and then they edit. There's a really shady piece of editing where it comes up and there's a little bit of text, and this says the real tapes, and the second the little real tapes symbol at the bottom of the screen goes, that's when all of the audio is fake. And it's laid out as if it's real, and it's one of the biggest scams Animal Planet ever did. And it's like, it made me fully believe that the US government, as a kid, bearing in mind I'm watching this at like 5 years old, and it was because it's from Animal Planet, you don't expect it to be a mockumentary. So I'm just saying, always again recommending Metatron again, because he completely ripped apart the Netflix Samurai show, which I got me into a bit more samurai history, but there is a lot of issues with it, which was a horrific foreshadowing to Cleopatra. Netflix and Animal Planet and History Channel currently in a race to see who can post the more historical misinformation. Yes, the aliens didn't come down and build the pyramids. Sorry, weird guy with frizzy hair. Anyway, I know the first one, they're on the moon and return in 2018, brilliant. By everyone rejecting the moon landing, say something else like Neptune is by the CIA. They could have made Communists in Space movie, but there isn't any peasants to starve up there. Spulak. Oh, TikTok chat is wild.
So today, the
Amazing
conspiracy
TikTok.
lives
That's
on
probably why my
in a
live's been
world of
restricted
increasing
again.
science skepticism, and on an internet that fuels pretend information, and to a demographic that is more and more mistrusting of institutional knowledge.
Right,
One
okay,
poll found-
right. I'm not supporting the moon landing hoaxes here. I am just saying 2 weeks to flatten the curve.
That in 2019, 11% of American millennials believed that the moon landing was staged. It's become a particularly durable conspiracy
What
theory.
I'm saying is I don't trust anything that the mainstream media says to me or that the government says to me. Yeah.
Because it has all of the ingredients of a good conspiracy theory. It's
When even Joe Rogan says something is fake, conspiracy theorists surely look at themselves. See, Joe Rogan is a good interviewer. He's not a good critical thinker. The guy, he's good fighter, good interviewer, very good interviewer. I watch a lot of Joe Rogan interviews to learn how to effectively interview. He's not a good critical thinker. He's a good comedian, good fighter, good interviewer. He's not a good critical thinker.
shadowy government antagonist with political...
Which feeds directly into your point, Paul. That yeah, if Joe Rogan is very clearly being like, this is dumb, you're probably wrong.
Motives. It leans on the human eye and brain as the primary measuring tool for the evidence. And when you believe in stuff like this, it feels good, like you're in on a secret. So let me just...
Side note from someone who's made a lot of content, obviously, again, professionally and on YouTube, which I still count as professionally, because I have been working at professional, is a professional, standard that I work to. When you're making videos like this, sitting with your arms crossed for that entire thing, he's just putting everyone off. So if you want to get into this sort of content, never cross your arms, because it's off-putting. It either makes you look nervous or it makes you look combative. So if I'm just sitting there for this entire thing, my point's not coming across because it just looks like I'm better than you. Your idea is dumb. And that sounds stupid, but to get across to flat earthers and moonland fakers and ancient apocalypse people and the phantom time hypothesis and stuff, you need to be able to humble yourself to listen to these crazy thought processes, because if you... It's very similar. So I had the discussion with a content creator. Count, mate. I can't read. If you want to see what count, just put in the YouTube chat. You'll have to read it yourself, guys. But I can't read that out because I'll get cancelled. But you have to go down to the level of these people to discuss it with them. So, one of the famous ones, a lot of people say the ancient astronaut hypothesis, which is the aliens came down and built the pyramids. They go, oh, it's racist. It's never white people. Someone who, when they were younger, when I was about 12, was very, very deep. I was about 12 to 15 at one point. It's not... I'm glad that I, Pardon me. You learn. I was, in my edgiest atheist phase, I was one of those edgy atheists who got really into everything that wasn't Christianity. And because ancient astronauts, it was very easy to debunk it. But where was I? But yeah, no, so that when you get deep into that side of things, the British Empire was founded by aliens. Like, people who get deep into it, like the deep parts of that conspiracy theory. But if you go up to someone of an ancient aliens or ancient astronaut, however you want to call it, and you say, you're a racist because you think aliens built the pyramids, is that person going to listen to your counter arguments and debunking, or are they going to walk away from you and be angry? Exactly. Because the human brain, when your ideas are challenged, goes into fight or flight. So if you want to get these people out of it, you cannot go in calling them a racist. I mean, if you're getting angry with them, calling them stupid is, sometimes acceptable. I wouldn't recommend it. But to actually debunk it, because this video, me doing this live, this guy's video, the probable live I'm going to end up doing next weekend recount, we're preaching to the choir. I know for a fact that we're going to get hate comments from the people who genuinely like... When I did the Ancient Apocalypse Graham Hancock people, I've had people unsubscribe to me and tell me that they view me less. I've had people tell me I went woke because I'm anti-Graham Hancock. Because I watched the Graham Hancock video and I ripped apart his horrific ideas with my basic understanding of Incan history, with my basic understanding of Bronze Age history, right? So you're going to get those people get mad at you, and I know for a fact I'm preaching to the choir. But, that when we want to handle these people, we kind of have to... Before Jim Jeffries sold out, he was a very good way, if a neighbour is throwing shit over your fence, if you start doing it back, it just looks like two people fighting, but eventually the world's going to take notice and go, wow, that one guy's getting a lot of shit thrown into his garden. And he's just fighting back, he's talking, and then everyone else listens too. Count Daedalus actually pointed out to me, because I'm very anti these sort of debates, I don't like them, and I don't like to take the time to comment on people. You're not trying to change the mind of the person you're debating, you're trying to change the mind of everyone else around them. Because their mind's already set. There's a famous case of a flat earther we've all seen the clip where he's got the cardboard and he has to lift it up because then it proves it's round, not flat. People like that, he immediately was trying to debunk the obvious evidence that the earth was curved. You're never going to get through to those people. It's everyone else around them. And what is a big issue at the moment is, yes, obviously I'm very anti-trusting the government. Again, the American government. Just look up if you want a left-wing example of how bad the American government is, look up the Move bombing. So I fully understand not trusting your government. I'm a big proponent of what the Dutch did to their prime minister that one time. I've been very open about that we should, a little bit of cannibalism against your prime minister isn't bad. In Minecraft, Mr. Sunak, oh, don't worry, he's too busy signing off death warrants for dogs. But yeah, so I understand questioning your government, and the Flat Earth movement is growing quite big. But yeah, so I understand questioning your government, and I recommend that. But I don't, know when to stop. How can you be how can you be a critical thinker when you're bake off all your celebs? That's true. Joe Rogan is stoned in every interview, so I completely understand how he's not mentally capable. Exactly. However, in my opinion, he doesn't really challenge the guests enough. He just lets them say tons of information without challenging them with factual information. That's very true. But I think it's also because he has guests on where he is not an expert in. And I think Joe Rogan would benefit greatly from having... Because he does have everyone from across the political aisle. I think Joe Rogan, now, sadly, because of polarization, he doesn't have that as much. I would say, if you want what Joe Rogan has, but very much centrist and having everyone on, they had an anti-porn advocate and then a stripper on one of their interviews. I really recommend Trigonometry of Konstantin Kisin, and I forget the other guy's name, and I do apologise. But I really recommend those guys because they're very factual based. They will challenge their guests regularly because they will go into an interview with the knowledge prepped ahead. Whereas Joe Rogan just goes, ha ha ha, you're funny. He's the Joe Rogan is the Seth Rogen of interviews. Except Joe Rogan's actually good at interviewing, whereas Seth Rogen isn't good at making movies. I personally prefer Louis Theroux interviews people. I like Louis Theroux because Louis Theroux's a genius. I've taken a lot of inspiration from Louis Theroux's interview because Louis Theroux will ask a question and will just leave you to uncomfortable silence, and that uncomfortable silence makes you spew more and more stuff out, and then you end up saying stuff you shouldn't have done. And then Louis is like, I got ya. Beyond the curve, that says all exactly. The governments know what is the best interest for the people. King, I will mute you.
End this video by
straight out of a communist propaganda leaflet, that
telling you why I know we landed on the moon.
You are looking at a very thin section of moon rock, magnified 500 times.
First off, we brought back 900 pounds of rocks during the Apollo missions. The Soviets, who were our technological and geopolitical enemies, eventually sent a robot to the moon to collect samples of their own. These precious rocks are sent out to scientists and educators 400 times a year to be studied and examined. And it has been verified by a lot of different people who have no motive to lie that these rocks were developed in an environment completely rid of oxygen.
So this is my argument. The Soviet scientists would have brought it up. Like, why would the Soviet scientists not take every chance to attack the Americans? Like, the fact that the evidence for it is so concrete, the Soviets, even Putin today, like, to my knowledge, hasn't tried to, like, say the moon landing's fake. Like, people who would benefit greatly from it being fake haven't come forward to it. Like...
Also, the Soviets themselves corroborated the moon landing and acknowledged that it happened. I mean, the Soviet leader kind of begrudgingly complimented the US and they published like a tiny little blurb in one of their newspapers, but like, they lost and they admitted they lost. Also, if I'm gonna rely on just my human brain logic for a second here, think about it. There were hundreds of thousands of people who were involved in the Apollo missions. Scientists, engineers, physicists, policymakers, mathematicians, all working day and night towards this goal, obsessing over every detail and then monitoring every step of the way, from Houston, Texas to the surface of the moon and back, communicating with the astronauts the whole time. So imagine 2 Texas Motor Speedway stadiums full of the brightest minds in the country, all in on the biggest deception of all time, without a single leak. And finally, if you insist on using your eyeballs as your only sensors that you will accept as proof, just look at this. This photo was taken by a telescope orbiting the moon. These are astronaut and buggy tracks here on the surface of the moon. You can even see the buggy's parking spot right here. And if you think that this photo, that yes, was originally taken by NASA, but many other photos have come out by other space stations.
There's a weird time difference between TikTok and YouTube. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It's because because TikTok is insistent that you use their live studio to stream to TikTok. I have to stream, so YouTube is getting a direct stream. TikTok is getting my Stream Elements streaming software is streaming to TikTok Live Studio, which is then streaming to TikTok, which obviously, makes TikTok, I think TikTok slightly behind.
Physical evidence of the humans on the moon. If you think that this is still the government, like 40 years later, the kids and grandkids of the Apollo people still photoshopping pictures to keep up this elaborate ruse, I don't know what would convince you.
To be fair, again, playing devil's advocate, US government officials would 100% keep up that ruse for as long as possible, same as like any other government would, because they want to stay in power. That's both Republican and Democrat.
Are you still using Google? Then I have something to show you.
Oh, is that it? It's truth. No way is that. No one has
video to work on, and we have so footage and
talking about like the editing. Okay, so that was me looking into the moon landing being faked. Go subscribe to Johnny Harris. His video was instrumental in this live. And I know I was adding commentary, but I do feel bad in, you know, essentially stealing his video for it. I'm probably going to do my own video on moon landing at some point. Because it is history, so I will probably do it at some point. When that is, I do not know. My time frames of things are sort of up in the air at the moment. But yeah. Any last questions before I head off? Be very quick because I do need to pee and I am very hungry. My TikTokers ahead, Mike, because we have a storm going through Scotland. We've got a storm going through me as well now, so my internet speed might not be stellar. But yeah, I see we've only one more person left in TikTok. I'm not sure on the numbers on YouTube. I sort of cover them up to keep myself mentally stable. But yeah, I would like to thank you all for watching. Tepes, you're back. I love you appearing on both. Upon me. Yeah, I like to thank you all for joining me on this journey of absolute hell. Laughing at all of the hardcore hoaxes ideas. We got to do a little bit of history as well, which I was grateful for. It gave me a bit of a respite. But yeah, we're ending this video off with we did land on the moon. We can quite literally see with a telescope the actual mirrors they left there and stuff. But yes, we did land on the moon. Thanks for a great stream, my dude. See you all next time. Thank you, Paul. But yeah, so that is all from me. I might be seeing you with Count Daedalus next weekend. I don't know. The poll was very conclusive. But yeah, so I'll gotta get my outro right. But anyways, guys, I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.